Hello, I wanted to jump on here today to talk about holding two truths together. And I think this is a principle in healing that is almost essential for us to keep moving forward and to keep growing in our life, especially from a nervous system perspective. I think something that happens when we are working on ourselves, in my perspective, it's working through somatic experiencing, and because that's the technique that I'm trained in. But a lot of times when I'm working with clients, we will dialogue about the changes that are happening in their life, and also like really noticing some of the incredible progress they're making in sessions. And what they'll often describe is that maybe they're able to really resource, kind of have a like firm grip on these internal resources that they've been utilizing in our sessions. So that might be being able to access like and slow down their breathing patterns. It might be feeling like an openness and expansion in their chest. It might be having a different relationship with themselves where they are feeling like they're shaming less, or they tend to feel a little more gentle on themselves and at ease with themselves, not as self-critical, with others. They might also highlight that they are in the relationships, they're not hiding as much, and they're feeling safer to be emotionally available in relationships. And that's really just what we're noticing there is actually the regulation of our body, that more of our physiology has moved into that slower rhythm of the parasympathetic nervous system. You could describe that as like this slinky opening, that there's a little more space, there's a little more expansion, and less of our physiology is in that self-protection. And that's going to have really positive repercussions in our life. So that's one truth that we can have developed. We developed a present self that is really available, that is really connected, that supports us to feel connected. And so we can have that truth, and at the same time, we can also have the truth that more corresponds to our past self-protection that we've developed over time. This would be an example of our fight, flight, freeze that might still be held in our nervous system, that is often and can be triggered by life events. And so what happens and how we might experience this, more of this past truth, is something might happen and we start to notice that we feel restricted in our throat. We might feel our heart racing. We might feel shaky in our legs, in our abdomen. We might feel tense in our stomach. We might notice that we start to really shut down our emotions and start to disconnect from connection with others. And we might also even go into old patterns, where we label and judge and shame ourselves for not either having it together, or not feeling in control, not feeling safe, judging ourselves for being disconnected from others, not feeling good enough. And so these two truths, the present self that's really connected and open, can also coexist with this old truth that would be more of our physiology, that represents kind of our old patterns, our old experience, the old self-protection that we still hold in our nervous system. To give an example of this, even yesterday, I noticed that I could really feel a sense of, throughout my day, a sense of where I was connected with my chest, my heart. I felt really open. I felt comfortable in my body. I felt connected to my feet. I could notice my breathing patterns were really slow and gradual. There wasn't a whole lot of busy or worried thinking in those moments, so I could really feel that I was in my parasympathetic nervous system, and I was really connected to what I would say is my present self, my adult self. And then something happened, and what I noticed is that my physiology changed a little bit, where I started to feel a tension pattern in my stomach. I started to feel a sense of rejection, and I felt worried and a little bit insecure and unstable. And that would be an example of this kind of older pattern, this older truth. One thing I know about my nervous system and also rejection is that that is a common emotional experience from my past. So I could really locate, this feeling that I was having as a feeling of rejection. And I knew that, that something is happening right now that's causing that feeling, but also there's a lot of emotional memory from the past that I hold in my nervous system as a emotional trigger that I could really feel. So I knew I was having a memory. And so what I did was I used that experience of slowness, the breathing, the connection with my body, that stability, to be able to bring a little bit of contact into this old experience that I was having, to be able to feel the tension in my stomach, to be able to feel that rising of my emotions, to feel a little bit of that insecurity. And so when I was doing that, I was bringing those two truths together. I was bringing this slower, more present self to this older experience that I was having. And what that allowed me to do is to really greet and notice these feelings in a really slow and gradual way. They weren't too much for me to process. They weren't too much for me to feel. And so what that does is if we have our new truth and our old truth engaging, it means that we can kind of fluctuate between these two. I can fluctuate between that parasympathetic and then also that survival physiology and really navigate my triggers in a really slow and more of a graceful way. And so what that does is when we have that rhythm, it kind of brings these two together, and it helps for these parts of my nervous system and these parts of my experience to coexist and to be balanced. I think it's in that state that we move forward and we grow our capacity to manage our stress and to engage with life. The key to that is my engagement with myself and how I support myself through that process, through my physiology and navigating towards my body. So what I would like you to consider is what two truths you want to hold together. Is there a present self that you've developed over time that has a lot of resources and tools? And how can that present self engage with some of these processes in the autonomic nervous system that might be still held as fight, flight, or freeze that you notice when you get triggered? And if you can try to bring those two together in a practical sense through your body awareness and through tracking your nervous system. So please practice that, and thank you for watching the video. Okay, take care.